They say the past never dies. It just waits, buried beneath the ruins we're too afraid to dig through. On this desolate planet, that truth lingered in every shadow, in every shattered fragment of stone. Akari 7 wasn't just a world. It was a wound left to fester beneath the weight of centuries, and somewhere beneath its jagged surface lay the answer to a question no one dared ask aloud. What would you risk to uncover the truth? And if the truth destroyed everything you believed, would you still chase it? For those who walk the ruins of Akari 7, the answers are always the same. Everything. And yes, because the truth, no matter how devastating, is the only thing that can set you free. Commander Elias Kane tightened his grip on the worn strap of his pack, his boots crunching against the brittle, ash-laden ground. Beside him walked a figure draped in a tattered cloak, moving with an eerie stillness. The refugee's insectoid. Features were partially obscured by the folds of fabric, but the tension in their body was unmistakable. Kane didn't trust the Zyntheri. Few humans did, not after the purge. "Keep close," Kane ordered, his voice sharp. The winds carried, whispers from the distant ruins, haunting and relentless. Somewhere ahead lay the artifact the Zyntheri claimed to know how to find, an artifact tied to the cataclysmic war that had scarred both their species. The refugee stopped, turning to Kane. Its multifaceted eyes glinted in the muted light. "You humans don't understand what you've left behind here," it said, its voice resonant with a strange, almost mournful tone. Kane scowled but didn't respond. He didn't need to understand. All he needed was to finish this mission and survive whatever waited for them in the ruins of Akari 7. The ruins of Akari 7 loomed larger as they pressed onward, their jagged silhouettes casting distorted shadows in the dim, lifeless light. Kane's boots crunched against fragments of shattered stone, each step seeming to stir the echoes of a forgotten age. His hand instinctively hovered near the worn grip of his plasma pistol, a precaution he rarely abandoned, especially in places like this. The Zyntheri refugee kept a measured pace behind him, its movements unnervingly silent. "How much farther?" Kane asked, not turning his head. "Not far," came the alien's resonant reply. Its voice carried an unsettling calm, as if it felt no urgency. "The central vault lies just beyond that ridge." Kane stole a glance at the distant ridge, its sharp edges framed by the skeletal remains of a colossal structure. What secrets had been buried here, and why had the Zyntheri insisted this place held the answers humanity wasn't ready for? The questions gnawed at him, but his gut told him the answers would come with a cost. The wind picked up, swirling. Fine ash into the air, making Kane's breathing mask hiss faintly as it filtered the particles. He glanced over his shoulder, his gaze locking briefly with the Zyntheri's multifaceted eyes. "You still haven't told me why you need me," he said. "What's so important about this place that you dragged me across half the galaxy?" The Zyntheri stopped, its gaze turning to the ruins ahead. "You were chosen because you survived the purge," it said simply. Kane stiffened. The words carried weight he hadn't expected. He had been there, on the front lines, in the firestorm. Humanity had unleashed upon the Zyntheri worlds. He had survived, but not without scars, both visible and unseen. "Chosen?" Kane's voice was sharp. "Don't make this sound like destiny." "It's not destiny," the Zyntheri said, stepping forward. "It's justice." The word hung in the air, heavy and immutable. For the first time, Kane hesitated. The ruins ahead seemed less like a forgotten relic and more like the mouth of a trap. As Commander Kane ventures deeper into the ruins of Akari 7, the tension only thickens. What secrets will the Zyntheri reveal, and what truths will Kane be forced to face? If you're as captivated by this unfolding mystery as we are, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel, so you don't miss a moment of this gripping story. There's much more to uncover. Stay with us. Kane's hesitation was brief but potent, his instincts warring with his sense of duty. Justice. The word rattled in his mind like a stray bullet in an empty chamber. He wasn't here for justice. He was here for a mission. His mission. Whatever debt humanity owed to the Zyntheri, he wasn't the one to settle it. "Let's move," he barked, his tone sharper than intended. The Zyntheri tilted its head slightly, as if amused by his discomfort, but said nothing. As they approached the ridge, the skeletal remains of the colossal structure became clearer. Massive arches, fractured and leaning precariously, towered. Above them, like the ribs of some ancient beast. Beneath their feet, the ground changed texture, transitioning from brittle soil to a strange, glass-like surface that reflected the dim light in fractured patterns. "What is this place?" Kane muttered, his voice low. "A sanctuary," the Zyntheri replied. "A vault of memory. It held the stories of my people before your kind." The alien paused, its voice tightening. "Before the purge." Kane's jaw clenched. He knew better than to argue, but the reminder stung. He scanned the surroundings, his sharp eyes catching movement at the edge of the ruins. Something small and quick darted between the shadows. "We're not alone," he said, his hand instinctively gripping his pistol. The Zyntheri didn't stop walking, its focus locked on the larger structure ahead, a partially collapsed dome that seemed to hum faintly with residual energy. "You were never alone, Commander. The past always walks with you." Kane ignored the cryptic response and quickened his pace, keeping his pistol drawn. The air grew heavier as they neared the dome, the hum intensifying until it resonated in his chest. As they stepped through the fractured entrance, Kane froze. Inside the dome, crystalline structures lined the walls, each glowing faintly with shifting colors. They seemed alive, pulsating in time with the hum. At the center stood a pedestal, and atop it rested a smooth, obsidian artifact that radiated an unnatural warmth. "What is that?" Kane asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The Zyntheri stepped forward, its gaze fixed on the artifact. "A truth your people tried to erase, and now it will be revealed." Kane's eyes narrowed as the Zyntheri approached the pedestal. The artifact seemed to pulse in response, its dark surface rippling like liquid obsidian. The hum in the air grew louder, vibrating in his bones. "You're not touching that until I know what it does," Kane snapped, stepping forward with his pistol raised. The Zyntheri paused, turning to face him. Its multifaceted eyes glimmered with a mix of irritation and resolve. "Do you truly believe you can stop me, Commander?" Kane's grip tightened, his voice low and sharp. "Try me." For a moment, the tension was suffocating. Then the Zyntheri lowered its head slightly, a gesture that could have been submission or pity. "Your weapon is useless against what lies here," it said. "But if it eases your mind, I will explain." Kane didn't lower his pistol, but he didn't press forward either. "Start talking." The Zyntheri gestured to the artifact, its voice tinged with reverence. "This is a recorder. It holds the memories of my people, their history, their triumphs, their pain. When your kind came to our worlds, you didn't just destroy us, you destroyed who we were. This," it motioned to the glowing crystals surrounding them, "is all that remains." Kane felt a flicker of unease. The Zyntheri's words carried a weight he couldn't ignore, but the artifact radiated something far beyond history. "If it's just memories, why do I feel like this thing's alive?" The Zyntheri hesitated, its gaze fixed on the recorder. "Because it is. The memories aren't passive, they adapt, they endure, and they remember." The hum in the air shifted, growing more erratic. Kane glanced around the dome, noticing faint images beginning to flicker across the crystalline walls. Scenes of vibrant cities, alien families, and then fire. Explosions. Death. Kane's stomach churned as the images played out, the sounds of screams and destruction filling the air. He recognized the devastation all too well. He had been there during the purge. "This isn't just history," Kane said, his voice hoarse. "It's a weapon." The Zyntheri turned to him, its tone cold and resolute. "It's justice." Before Kane could respond, the artifact pulsed violently, sending out a wave of energy that knocked him off his feet. As he hit the ground, the crystalline walls erupted in light, and the dome began to tremble. Kane scrambled to his feet as the tremors intensified, the crystalline walls radiating blinding light. The images of destruction had disappeared, replaced by jagged flashes of energy coursing through the dome. He steadied himself, his pistol still clutched tightly, though it felt useless in the face of what was unfolding. "What the hell did you do?" Kane barked, his voice barely audible over the growing roar. The Zyntheri stood unmoving, its gaze locked on the recorder. "It's not me," it said, its voice calm but layered with tension. "The recorder is responding to your presence." "Responding how?" Kane demanded, but the answer came not in words, but in sensation. The dome suddenly fell silent, the hum replaced by a heavy stillness that pressed on Kane's chest, like a physical weight. Then, a voice, deep, resonant and otherworldly, spoke from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You were there." Kane froze. The words were simple, but they carried an undeniable accusation. The Zyntheri turned to him, its expression unreadable. "What is this?" Kane whispered, his voice trembling. The recorder pulsed again, and the crystalline walls erupted with new images. Kane's blood ran cold as he saw himself, younger, in the thick of battle. The purge. He remembered the orders, the chaos, the fire raining from the sky as entire cities were reduced to ash. But seeing it now, through the eyes of the victims, was something else entirely. The screams were louder, the faces clearer, families clutching one another as their world crumbled. A child staring into the sky, its reflection filled with flames. And then Kane, leading his squad through the wreckage, his voice booming with commands. "This isn't real," Kane muttered, shaking his head. "This is manipulation." The Zyntheri stepped closer, its tone cutting through the denial. "It's truth. This is what your kind erased, Commander, but the recorder kept it safe. And now you will witness it." Kane staggered back, the weight of the images crushing him. The dome trembled once more, and the voice spoke again, louder this time. "Will you deny the blood on your hands?" Before Kane could answer, a fissure split the ground beneath. The pedestal and the recorder sank into the depths, dragging the light and energy with it. The dome darkened, leaving only silence. The silence pressed down on Kane like a shroud. The dome's once blinding light had faded, leaving only the faint glow of the fractured crystals embedded in the walls. He could still feel the weight of the recorder's final words. "Will you deny the blood on your hands?" His hands trembled slightly as he holstered his pistol, trying to steady himself. The Zyntheri moved closer, its presence almost suffocating in the darkened chamber. "What now?" Kane asked, his voice hoarse. "Is this the part where you pass judgment?" The Zyntheri's gaze was inscrutable, its multifaceted eyes catching the faint light like shards of glass. "You misunderstand, Commander. The recorder does not judge, it remembers. What happens next is up to you." Kane scoffed, shaking his head. "Up to me? You dragged me to this dead planet, showed me a weapon disguised as a history lesson, and now you're telling me it's my choice." The Zyntheri stepped closer, its voice dropping to a near whisper. "Yes, because this is not just about what humanity did to my people. It is about what you did, Kane." Kane's breath caught, but he quickly masked it with a scowl. "I followed orders. We all did." "Is that what you tell yourself to sleep at night?" the Zyntheri said, its tone sharp. "That the lives you ended were nothing more than collateral in someone else's war?" Kane turned away, his jaw clenched. The memories he had buried, memories the recorder had just unearthed, threatened to consume him. He had fought to survive, to protect his species, but the cost. He shook the thoughts away. A low rumble interrupted the tension. Kane looked around, his instincts flaring. Dust fell from the dome's crumbling ceiling, and the faint hum of energy returned, pulsing erratically. "What's happening now?" Kane demanded, turning to the Zyntheri. "The recorder has awakened something deeper," it said, its voice tinged with apprehension. "This planet holds more than just memories. It holds power. And now, that power stirs." Before either could react, a fissure split the chamber floor, sending cracks racing toward the walls. The ground beneath them began to quake violently. "We need to leave," Kane shouted, grabbing the Zyntheri's arm and pulling it toward the exit. But the Zyntheri resisted, its gaze fixed on the depths of the fissure. "No, we've come this far. The answers lie below." "Below?" Kane snapped. "This whole place is falling apart." "Then you better decide quickly, Commander," the Zyntheri said, its voice calm despite the chaos. "Because you won't get another chance." Kane's instinct screamed at him to run. The fissures widened, spilling blinding light from the depths as the ground buckled beneath his boots. But the Zyntheri stood firm, its gaze unwavering, locked on the abyss below. "You're insane," Kane growled, his voice strained as another tremor nearly knocked him off balance. "Perhaps," the Zyntheri replied calmly, stepping closer to the edge. "But the truth doesn't wait for comfort or caution." Kane cursed under his breath, his hand darting to his utility belt to activate his stabilizer boots. The magnetic plates anchored him to the trembling ground as he moved to the alien's side. "You think the truth is down there? Fine, but if we die, it's on you." The Zyntheri didn't respond. Instead, it extended one of its spindly arms toward the chasm, a faint glow emanating from the tips of its claw-like fingers. The light from below responded, swirling and coalescing as if drawn to the alien's presence. Kane watched in reluctant awe as the chaotic energy formed into a coherent path, a bridge of light spanning the gap. "Not exactly a comforting sign," Kane muttered, his voice laced with skepticism. "Your people call this power destruction," the Zyntheri said, stepping onto the bridge. "We called it harmony." Kane followed reluctantly, each step sending ripples through the glowing surface beneath him. The air grew warmer, heavier, as they descended deeper into the fractured core of the dome. The light intensified, revealing an underground chamber larger than anything they had encountered above. At its center stood a monolithic structure, pulsing with energy. The recorder's obsidian form had merged with the monolith, tendrils of light stretching outward like veins. Kane could feel the raw power radiating from it, a force that seemed both ancient and alive. "What is this?" Kane asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The core," the Zyntheri replied, its tone reverent. "The source of our people's connection. It once united us, until your kind severed it." Kane frowned, stepping closer to the monolith. The tendrils of light seemed to react to his presence, reaching out as if testing him. He felt a pull, not physical but emotional, drawing him toward the structure. "This isn't just a power source," Kane said, realization dawning. "It's alive. It's sentient." The Zyntheri nodded. "And it remembers everything. The purge, the pain, the loss. But it does not seek revenge, Commander. It seeks balance, a chance to restore what was broken." The monolith's light flared, and Kane stumbled back, shielding his eyes. In the blinding glow, images began to form, images of a future yet to come. War, unity, ruin, redemption. Kane's voice trembled as he asked, "And what does it want from me?" The Zyntheri turned to him, its voice heavy with purpose. "To choose." The core's light pulsed rhythmically, casting shifting shadows on the chamber walls. Kane stood still, his breathing shallow as visions flickered before him. Destruction, unity, and everything in between. "What am I supposed to choose?" Kane asked, his voice barely steady. The Zyntheri moved closer, its gaze fixed on the glowing monolith. "The core holds the power to restore what was lost, our connection, our history, or to erase it all, ensuring no one can use it again. The choice is yours." Kane clenched his fists. "Why me? I'm not a savior. I'm the reason your people need this in the first place." The Zyntheri tilted its head, its voice calm but firm. "Because you carry the weight of what was done. This is not about punishment, Commander. It's about responsibility." Another tremor shook the chamber, sending cracks spidering across the crystalline walls. The core pulsed brighter, its tendrils of light stretching outward, beckoning. Kane felt its pull, a strange warmth that seemed to bypass his body and grip his mind. "What happens if I refuse?" he asked. "Then the core will remain silent," the Zyntheri said, "and the past will repeat itself." Kane's jaw tightened. Memories of the purge surged, fires, screams, and the hollow orders he'd followed. The recorder's vision had shown him what he'd ignored for so long, the faces of the lives he'd destroyed. Slowly, he stepped forward, extending a trembling hand toward the tendrils of light. The core reacted instantly, engulfing him in a rush of warmth and sound. For a brief moment he felt everything, every loss, every hope, and then silence. When Kane opened his eyes, the chamber was still. The Zyntheri stood beside him, its expression unreadable. "It is done," it said. Outside, the ruins began to glow faintly, as if the planet itself were breathing again. Kane stared into the distance, unsure of what the future held. But for the first time, he felt something unfamiliar: hope. Kane's choice echoes across the ruins of Arkari 7, a decision that could reshape the fate of 2 species. But what would you have done? Would you risk everything for redemption, or let the past remain buried? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more epic stories. Because in a galaxy filled with echoes of the past, one truth remains: the future is built by those brave enough to face it.